Our society today is obsessed with rights. We hear, "It's my right. I have the right." Devotional writer Wendy Capps said this about rights. When we get consumed by my right, what I deserve, it oftentimes becomes hard to think clearly. Our emotions make it hard to make good, wise decisions. Welcome to the Word for 2021. Today we're in Judges chapter 15. Because of Samson's decisions and his actions at the end of chapter 14, his father-in-law truly thought that Samson had left his daughter, as it were, at the altar. He thought that he had left her behind, so the father gave his daughter to someone else. When Samson learned about this, he was angry. And it says in verse 3, Samson said, "This time I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them." Samson was consumed by personal revenge rather than working to free the Israelites from the oppression of the Philistines. Samson's life was driven by selfish motives, selfish lusts, and selfish revenge. God's desire, his call for Samson's life was that he would begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines. We read about that in chapter 13, verse 5, when the angel came and spoke with Samson's mother. Samson, however, lived his life for himself, and the rash decisions that he made brought unnecessary conflict into his life. In verse 11, 3,000 Israelites from Judah, rather than joining Samson against the Philistines, they wanted to turn him over to the Philistines. Instead of uniting Israel, he was all alone. Why? Because of what his selfish ambition and his selfish decisions were doing. Now, despite his self-centered motives, God still used him against the Philistines. Now, as Christians, we need to learn lessons from Samson, but we need to follow the example of Jesus. As we read about the mindset of Jesus in Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 11, Jesus gave up his rights. He humbled himself. He submitted all of his rights to the Father and his will. The Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9, "Be careful, however, that the exercise of your freedom does not become a stumbling block to the weak." And just like Jesus, Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:19, "Though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible." We need to learn lessons from Samson's life, but again, we need to follow the example of Jesus. Thank you for joining the Word for 2021.